I'm going to talk about a specific cartridge. This cartridge has never been one of my favorite cartridges, but it's always had merit, and that's the 30-06. The reason that I'm talking about the 30-06 is because I get numerous inquiries about what to use. Well, I've talked at great length of what bullets to use and so forth, and I'll mention a few things, to do with the bullets. But my purpose is this, talking about the 30-06. When the 30-06 first come on the scene many years ago, this was a military cartridge, and lots of people have graduated or gravitated towards military type cartridges, the 30-06, the 308, the 223, and so forth. They're all cartridges meant for a purpose. Well, the 30-06 was what it was, and absolutely nothing more when it was brought out. And in fact, people used wrong ammunition then. They used full metal jacketed type bullets to shoot game. Most states it's illegal. Anyway, the 30-06 came about in a time when we had a very narrow selection of rifle powders for reloading. There wasn't much factory ammunition in the day and age. People were pretty much, they had to be reloaders. And over the years, having seen some good aspects to do with the 30-06 and some bad, a lot of instances to do with lacking energy and shooting at game that was a little farther than the cartridge was capable of for the design of the bullets at the time and the velocities that these bullets were pushed with the powders of the early time. We're going to fast forward here. We've had some considerable number of powders for quite a few years that are very good in the 30-06. I happen to use Winchester 760 ball powder. You can get quite a lot of that in a case. You can get some very high velocities. Reloader 19, Reloader 22, and there's a ram shot powder that is a pretty close equivalent to the 760. And of course, Hodgson's has their H414, which is essentially 760. So I think that the best two powders, in my experience, have been Winchester 760 and H414. And I happen to be loading a 30-06 of mine with 150 grain Swift Sirrocco bullets. Get your ears open. Get your ears open. I'm pushing that bullet at 3,160 feet a second out of a 22-inch barreled 30-06. Now, there are many loads out here for the 300 Winchester Magnum, factory loads, that won't give you that kind of velocity. You can load that cartridge over 2,900 feet a second with 180s with 414 or Winchester 760. And I invariably use Winchester large rifle primers and Remington cases. The Remington cases are tough. So what I'm pointing out to you here is the velocities that we knew, the 150 grain loads that we've had out here for a lot of years that are hardly 2,800 feet a second. There's a lot of difference between 2,800 feet a second and the velocity that I'm running that bullet at. And my rifle shot 3 shots in 347. This is not a custom rifle. This is just simply a FN Mauser barrel action bedded in a stock, a fiberglass stock with loads worked up by myself. The rifle group to 347 group, and you couldn't go wrong within the limitations. But just because we're running this velocity, irregardless, we still hit a limit in velocity and energy downrange how far away we should be shooting. I happen to feel that in most instances, you see, as I've said before, the 1,800 foot-pounds of energy should apply here to our elk size game. We can use 13, 14, 1,500 foot-pounds energy for deer size, sheep size game and so forth. And yeah, maybe somebody killed an animal, you know, at some point in time that with the energy was down another 100 feet a second or 100 foot-pounds less than what I'm mentioning. But that doesn't make it adequate. The next time, it might not prove out to be adequate. And I started out life with a 300 Magnum, and so having a 300 Magnum, you see, my 300 Magnum will do about 140 feet a second with the same 150 feet a second. More velocity than the 30-06. And that does give you a little bit more downrange energy to be able to do some of these things. But unfortunately, everything that's listed here as far as loads for the 30-06, and this applies to almost any cartridge on the market and loads on the market, everything can be improved with the proper powders and so forth. You've got to understand that the companies load their ammunition to work in virtually every rifle under every set of circumstances without any irritations, without any malfunctions and one thing and another. But individual rifles with people that know what they're doing, such as myself, with properly worked up loads, using a chronograph and a 1" 10 micrometer to check for pressure. I have no head expansion on my Remington cases whatsoever using that load. And if I up my charge another grain, I've got about a half a thousandths, 4/10 to 5/10 head expansion on my cases. And I've loaded the cases for this rifle 10 times. There's the proof. When you can load cases 10 times and you're still loading them, you're loading to a safe pressure level for that specific rifle. I'm not telling you at the same time here that your rifle will do what I'm indicating. Your rifle may not do that. Your rifle, you know, you may have to use a somewhat lower charge, and you simply have to work with that rifle, working up loads in half grain increments, everything else remaining the same, and chronographing and measuring for pressures to be able to get what you want, where you want to go. And this applies to absolutely every cartridge that any of us reload for. It has to be followed. But I'm pointing out that this has brought the 30-06 a bit further along, as more desirable than it used to be. And I feel that 150 and 165 grain bullets are perhaps about the ideal weights for the cartridge, considering its capabilities. You can load what you want. You can load 180s. You can load 200s if you want. You can load 220s if you'd like. But, you know, everything has its limits within the cartridge capability. But we're basically turning a 30-06 into a 300 Magnum. Pretty doggone close. By proper loading techniques, the proper burning rates of powders, and so forth. So I'll finish this by saying I repeatedly get correspondence, people asking what bullets to use, and I've said time and time again, bullets constructed for game. Bullets made honestly for game. Nozzle partitions. the line of Swift bullets. They're A-frame, they're Sirroccos, the Federal TLR Edge, and so forth. And our Barnes bullets. And there's other bullets that are equal. If the bullet's made pretty much the same way, such as the Mauser E-tip or such as the Hornady GMX type of a bullet, those are very top-notch game bullets. But I rarely use anything except for maybe some antelope, a cup and draw bullet. So there's my thoughts on it. Improve your loads for your 30-06, folks.